Battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively heats up. The Gossip Girl actress has begun to share the toll it's having on her personal life.
Defendant Blake Lively has unequivocally left them with no choice.
Blake filed a complaint against a 40-year-old man named Justin Baldoni and others in California, claiming that she was dealing with harassment.
TMZ reported that Blake Lively has told people that there were multiple reasons that Justin Baldoni made her feel uncomfortable.
Justin says that Blake was determined to make him the real-life villain in her story because she wasn't doing well on the promo tour for the movie. It was very tone deaf. Her hair care line wasn't doing well. She was trying to sell booze.
Blake Lively's legal dispute with Justin Baldoni has taken on a life of its own, evolving from a relatively contained set of allegations about on-set behavior into a sprawling conflict characterized by courtroom defeats, strategic maneuvering, media management, and the potential inclusion of multiple new parties. The dynamic that has unfolded speaks not only to the core issues, allegations of inappropriate conduct and contractual disagreements, but also to the complexity of high-stakes litigation in the public eye. At this point, observers find themselves parsing every twist and turn to see if the momentum will shift dramatically in one direction, or if both sides will continue exchanging legal salvos until a final resolution is reached by settlement or judgment. The case began under circumstances that many initially viewed as straightforward. Lively's team publicly accused Baldoni of conduct on set that caused professional harm and emotional distress. Details about the alleged conduct were, and to some extent remain, somewhat vague in the public arena. Nevertheless, Lively's camp deemed it serious enough to escalate to a formal complaint. Over time, though, what might have been a more narrowly scoped matter ballooned, partly because of the multiple filings, partly because of the push-and-pull tactics in the courtroom, and partly because of both sides' apparent willingness to air facets of their dispute in public forums. The involvement of media outlets has amplified every development, and fans of both parties have delved into the details, discussing them extensively on social media. One of the earliest indicators that this case would be neither quick nor simple was the court's rejection of the initial evidence submitted by Lively's side. This development represented a major setback at a critical early juncture. According to accounts from those present in the courtroom, Lively's legal team had prepared a set of documents, purportedly including communication logs and possibly some form of witness testimony, which they believed would support their allegations. However, when they presented their materials, the judge determined that, for reasons not fully elaborated in publicly available records, they did not meet the required legal standard to be admitted at that phase of the proceedings. Whether the judge questioned the document's relevance or found procedural errors in how they were introduced.
I mean, I internalized that as opportunity. We had such a responsibility to this audience to deliver something and to have the opportunity to deliver something for a passionate group of people.
Yes.
As someone who is so deeply passionate myself, I was so excited about that. I would so much rather have that than people who are indifferent.
Blasé.
The ruling effectively left Lively's attorneys scrambling to retool their arguments. Rather than admit defeat, Lively's lawyers responded immediately, announcing their intent to file an amended complaint that would clarify and strengthen their positions, as well as meet whatever concerns the court had raised about their earlier submissions. The judge gave them a firm deadline of February 14th, signaling that although an opportunity to refine arguments was being granted, this opportunity would not remain open-ended. These sorts of tight timelines are common in litigation, as courts aim to keep matters progressing in a timely fashion rather than allowing them to become mired in repeated attempts to reshape the narrative. Lively's legal team soon returned to court, requesting more time to finalize their amended complaint. Specifically, they petitioned the judge to extend the deadline from February 14th to March 5th. On its face, this was a notable jump, especially for a case already accruing significant media attention. The rationale provided by Lively's side centered on the complexities of bringing new parties into the lawsuit and the need to gather additional witness statements or evidence that had only recently come to light. Among these potential new parties was Jed Wallace, whose involvement was justified by pointing to his own separate lawsuit in a federal district court in Texas. Lively's lawyers contended that Wallace's legal action there contained overlapping issues and could substantially impact their approach to the case against Baldoni, necessitating additional weeks to incorporate that information properly. However, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, wasted no time in contesting that explanation, arguing that the Texas filing was not a surprising or independent new factor, but rather a direct response to legal steps Lively herself had initiated in January. According to Friedman's account, Wallace was effectively reacting to what Lively had done first, not bringing forth issues that arose in a vacuum. The inference was that Lively's camp had long been aware of the interplay between the cases and could not credibly claim they needed extra weeks at this late stage. Friedman also brought up what he saw as a double standard. Lively's team had previously refused to grant a similar extension to Baldoni's side when Los Angeles-based crisis events had prompted them to request more time. Now, with Lively pursuing an extension for her own purposes, Friedman suggested the stance was inconsistent and undermined her credibility on the matter of scheduling leniency. Faced with these competing arguments, the judge reached a middle ground.
A lot of it's my real life clothes or my husband's clothes or my girlfriend Gigi's clothes. I was borrowing some.
Wait, that's kind of amazing. So you have something of Gigi's in the movie.
Yeah, it's like a wedding, like something old, something borrowed, something blue, something new.
Wait, which
except
one?
it's just,
Now I want to think of the scene.
Oh, I'm wearing her stuff all over it.
Oh, really?
And tons of like Bodhi, which is with the suit now that I'm wearing is Bodhi. It was meant for my husband, but I borrowed it.
His suit?
It was meant for him to wear, but it's so pretty. Look at it. You guys are not getting it in the shot.
The one that was far closer to Baldoni's position than Lively's. Instead of granting the month-long extension from mid-February to early March, the judge allowed only a single additional day. The abrupt reduction in the requested timetable was widely interpreted as a sign that the court was growing uneasy about delays and was especially cautious about opening the door to further lengthy postponements. Lively's team was visibly disappointed, according to observers, as they had counted on several weeks to shore up their reworked claims. The one-day extension meant they had to scramble to revise and file swiftly, compressing the time available to consult with potential new witnesses, gather extra documentation, and craft a comprehensive amendment to their legal arguments. In parallel with this deadline-related frustration, another storyline emerged: the question of whether Lively's attorneys would be able to bring in actors or other on-set personnel to corroborate her version of events. Jenny Slate, known for her comedic work and her involvement in the same project as Lively and Baldoni, was initially someone Lively's team believed might offer supportive testimony. Slate had publicly praised Lively as a friend, at one point making comments that indicated sympathy for Lively's situation. Yet, when it came to formal involvement, Slate balked, reportedly preferring to keep her distance from the legal fray. This turn of events placed Lively's lawyers in a bind. They could subpoena Slate, thereby compelling her testimony, but doing so might risk negative public relations, especially if Slate made it clear she did not wish to be entangled. Critics of Lively's approach argued that bringing in more actors with only tangential connections to the specific misconduct claims could look like an attempt to amass a chorus of supporting voices rather than produce direct evidence. It remained unclear how persuasive Slate's testimony would be, even if obtained, but the possibility of calling her to the stand illustrated Lively's desire to underscore that multiple individuals purportedly witnessed or experienced problematic behavior tied to Baldoni. Amid these witness-related uncertainties, Lively's lawyers also sought to impose limitations on Brian Friedman's public communications. They argued that his statements to the media risked shaping the public narrative in a way that could prejudice potential witnesses.
Well, I actually knew of the film before I knew of Colleen's book, which is, so I know a unique entry point, but I think because I just have 1,000 children, I, have missed all of pop culture, and her significant impact in the world of books. I mean, so many of her books are on the New York Times bestseller. I mean, it's crazy.
Or taint how the facts were being perceived. This kind of request, a motion to curb an opposing attorney's ability to make public statements, is not unusual in high-profile cases, where the court of public opinion can sometimes overshadow the official legal processes. However, the judge denied any broad prohibition on Friedman's press commentary, while cautioning that an escalation of media sparring might result in a faster trial timeline. The subtext was that if the lawsuit risked devolving into a media spectacle, the court could attempt to streamline the proceedings to bring about a resolution rather than allow the conflict to simmer in the public eye indefinitely. Though the story's ultimate resolution remains unwritten, there is a sense among observers that a turning point might come sooner rather than later. The judge's warning about expedited proceedings, if the media sparring continues, suggests that the court has limited patience for ongoing bickering through press statements and websites. If the timeline accelerates, both parties could be thrust into depositions and preliminary hearings faster than they anticipated. testing whether they are prepared to substantiate their claims and defenses. Depending on what emerges during this phase, settlement talks could either intensify or break down. A key factor will be how well Lively's reworked complaint stands up to scrutiny, especially considering how little time she ultimately had to finalize it. Another dynamic concerns whether additional witnesses will step forward or pull away. Jenny Slate may be just the beginning of a chain reaction, as others who worked on the same project weigh the risks and benefits of testifying. Some might align more closely with Lively's portrayal of events, while others could testify that Baldoni's conduct was professional and respectful at all times, casting doubt on Lively's narrative. If the case goes to trial, the credibility of these witnesses and the consistency of their recollections may prove pivotal. On the other hand, the legal system sometimes has a way of encouraging settlements when both sides realize that a drawn-out trial could yield unpredictable results, especially when so much is at stake financially and reputationally. In the meantime, the public conversation continues to swirl. Fans of Lively emphasize her history of being a positive force, pointing to her philanthropic efforts and the lack of controversies attached to her name until now. Fans of Baldoni highlight his track record of initiatives aimed at social good, plus the notion that no tangible proof of misconduct has been brought to light, at least not in any publicly accessible filing. Each camp scrutinizes new pieces of information, from stray text messages to statements from colleagues, as if they were puzzle pieces that might ultimately reveal the truth.
The idea that people think that they know you, I think because of how intrusive media is these days, there's people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work, and if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you.
That truth, however, remains elusive, hidden behind legal strategy, incomplete disclosures, and the typical complexities of civil litigation. While no one can predict precisely where the case will end up, a few realities stand out. The first is that Lively's camp must now operate under strict time constraints, having lost the chance for a lengthy extension. They will need to produce an amended complaint that is coherent, persuasive, and fully addresses both the original grounds for dismissal of their evidence and the new challenges raised by Baldoni's legal team. The second is that Baldoni's side will continue leveraging public-facing platforms, maintaining that they have nothing to hide and presenting as many documents as possible to cast Lively's claims in a questionable light. The third is that the court's patience for further delays or shifting stories appears limited, which could either lead to a relatively swift resolution or force the parties into more serious settlement negotiations to avoid a risky trial. As the drama persists, it serves as a reminder of how quickly a single set of allegations can metastasize once multiple legal forums, media outlets, and public figures become involved. The intersection of entertainment fame and legal controversy always draws attention, but in this instance, the combination of large financial stakes, potential reputational harm, and the personal relationships of those involved adds layers of complexity. Even individuals like Ryan Reynolds, only tangentially involved by virtue of his marriage to Lively and his professional acquaintance with Baldoni, become part of the tapestry of evidence and speculation. Whether Lively's team can reverse the negative momentum is one of the major questions on everyone's mind. Some legal analysts suggest that they might unveil new evidence or witness accounts that drastically change the perception of Baldoni's behavior. Others believe that the fundamental weaknesses identified in their initial filings and the judge's reluctance to grant significant extra time portend an uphill battle. If Lively's side were to lose decisively, the financial repercussions could be staggering, though it is also possible that the final damages, if any, would be smaller than the gargantuan sums being floated in the press.
But I was like just tracking him down, and then I finally got to read the script, and the script was a thriller. So that was a little confusing to me because he's like such a funny director.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know, what is this? Because the script is definitely like a twisting, turning, intense thriller. Is it a comedy or a thriller? And he said, yes. So then every day on set, I was like, is today a comedy or is it a thriller?
It's a good mix
and
of
it's
both.
like, yeah, it's like really kind of over the top and campy and trashy and fun and like, you know, kind of like my outfit, I guess.
Beyond financial liability, there is always the delicate matter of public perception. A loss could overshadow Lively's future endeavors in a way that a private settlement might not. Baldoni, for his part, faces the risk that any damaging new revelations could tarnish his reputation. While establishing a website replete with evidence and timelines may help shape public sentiment in the short term, The longer the case drags on, the more likely it becomes that unflattering or contradictory details might surface. This is a gamble. By laying out their documentation so openly, Baldoni's lawyers are betting that none of the claims Lively's team might muster can overshadow what they have published. If something surfaces that directly contradicts their public-facing evidence, their posture of transparency could become a vulnerability. Where the case goes from here hinges on how the next round of legal procedures unfolds, particularly the filing of the amended complaint that Lively's team has been working on under intense time pressure. If that document proves compelling, and the court allows it to stand, the lawsuit could enter a new phase of discovery and depositions, where each side must confront the other's evidence in a formal setting. If, on the other hand, the court remains unpersuaded by Lively's revised allegations or finds them insufficient, the future of her claims could be precarious. It would also signal to potential witnesses and additional parties that the court's patience with repeated revisions is limited, which might discourage those witnesses from stepping forward. For now, the legal proceedings continue against a backdrop of speculation about whether either star could afford the reputational damage a full-blown trial might bring. Negotiations for a settlement would almost certainly be confidential, meaning that the public might never know the details if the two sides strike a deal out of court. Yet the intensity of the conflict and the size of the potential damages create a strong incentive for both to dig in, lest they appear too quick to capitulate. The next few months will likely bring more filings, more statements, and possibly more attempts to rein in or shape media coverage. Each motion that is granted or denied by the judge will add or subtract leverage from one side or the other, continuing to shape the path ahead. Ultimately, whether Blake Lively can alter the prevailing impression that her legal strategy is faltering will depend on how well her attorneys adapt to the setbacks, produce cohesive legal arguments, and secure credible evidence. If they fail in that endeavor, the cumulative effect of court losses, missed evidentiary opportunities, and unpersuasive new filings could be difficult to overcome.
We always tease each other. He was, after I gave birth, he was like, oh my gosh, if I lost you and I, went to the park with our 3 kids, I mean, think of the ladies I can. He's like, this is a horrible thing to say. And he's like, I mean, I've got a long list. And I was like, oh, really? Because I just have one on my list. I don't have anyone on my list.
And then it wasn't funny anymore.
No, it's so much more of a burn. He's like, wait, who? And I was like, think of someone. Bob Newhart. I don't know.
The implications would not only hit Lively financially if damages were awarded against her, but also could reverberate through her Hollywood standing and influence. For Baldoni, the goal is to maintain a consistent front, cast doubt on Lively's motivations and evidence, and demonstrate an unwavering willingness to see the process through, whether in court or out. As fans and pundits alike monitor each new development, the storyline has taken on the familiar shape of a drawn-out Hollywood saga, with the courtroom serving as the stage. While the intrigue is palpable, it remains a real legal case with very real consequences for the parties involved. The judge's firm stance on not allowing protracted delays has imposed a pace that requires both sides to continually refine and present their claims without undue postponements. It is this combination, high-profile figures, large sums of money at stake, and a court determined to keep proceedings efficient, that ensures the ongoing attention from the public. Whether the final outcome arrives via judicial ruling or a last-minute accord, the process itself has already become a cautionary tale in how quickly and dramatically a professional disagreement can escalate once it enters the legal system and the court of public opinion.